So, welcome to again the new lecture of this course, Solar Photovoltaics Principles, Technologies and Materials. So, we will just briefly recap the last lecture. So, in the last lecture we talked about recombination, generation and statistics, and basically we looked at change in electron concentration, change in hole concentration, and we are mostly dealing with the change in the minority carrier concentration. Essentially, this del N by del T is going to be valid for a p type semiconductor, and this del P by del T is going to be for the n type semiconductor. And this del N by del, and these were related to you can say delta P by tau or delta N by tau. So, for a n type semiconductor it would be delta P by tau P, and for this for a p type semiconductor it would be delta N by tau N. So, this is for a p type and this is for a n type this is for a n type semiconductor. Just one second. So, this is for a n type and this is for a p type semiconductor. You are worried about the minority carriers, right. So, for n type you are worried about the hole recombination, for a p type you are worried about the electron recombination. These tau p and tau n are the carrier lifetimes. So, these are basically in the, you can say, low level injection conditions. When the perturbation is small and it does not make too much difference to the majority carrier concentration. However, in there are possibilities when you can have so you can have conditions like low level injection, which is what gives rise to these statistics, but you can also have steady state conditions which are different, where the trap level is nearly at the level of Fermi level and low level injection conditions do not really apply there, and hence the modifications are made in the equations or statistics which are dealt with differently. So, but these are the two major cases that we consider. Now, another recombination mechanism, so instead of so other than band to band and trap assisted recombination, another recombination that is quite common is, especially in solar cell, is surface recombination. And the surface recombination is because of presence of defects at the surfaces. All of us know that surfaces have dangling bonds, they have oxides, they have variety of other things on the surface. So, a lot of defects are present on the surface, and that is why surface treatment is a very important exercise in solar cells, because this plays a very important role in carrier recombination. So, for example, for a P naught. So, this is for electron recombination in a p type semiconductor. So, this is basically RSN is the electron recombination rate. So, surface recombination rate of electrons is RSN. V is the velocity of surface recombination velocity, as we call it. And then we have NP, which is the carrier concentration in a p type semiconductor, and NP naught is the minority carrier concentration at equilibrium or in the beginning or initial concentration. So, this RSN is the surface recombination rate is equal to surface recombination velocity multiplied by basically delta N, okay, which is NP minus NP naught, and Vs, surface recombination velocity, is defined as NST into V thermal into sigma S. This is basically the trap density. V thermal is the thermal velocity, and sigma S is capture cross section. Okay. Okay. Again, if you want to get into details of these expressions, go to the same book which I recommended in the last class, that is Advanced Semiconductor Fundamentals by Pierre, volume 6. And there are other recombination methods as well, Auger recombination, and these also play important roles in semiconductors, but we'll leave them out for the sake of this course. And now we come to absorption. Especially from the perspective of solar cell, which is important is photon absorption. Okay. So, if you have a semiconductor, let us say hypothetical semiconductor like this, okay, and so this is your you can say this is E, this is where you have K, EK diagram, and you excite electron from here, and this electron goes here, creating electron here and causing a hole here. So, essentially when this happens, it happens when you have a light shining on it, E is equal to h nu, which is, and this E photon is greater than Eg, which is this energy, right. This is the in this case we are taking it as a direct band gap semiconductor. So, basically you create a hole in the valence band and you create an electron in the conduction. For each photon that is absorbed, you have one hole or one hole and one electron created. So, this is you can say, so what happens is that you create a basically electron hole pair, okay. This is upon absorption of photon, all right, of appropriate wavelength. So, the condition is the E photon is larger than Eg, then it results in creation of a. So, essentially this pair is called as exciton, okay, and this exciton in normal semiconductor, in an inorganic semiconductor, the binding energy of exciton is very small. So, as a result electron and hole are separated very easily, they do not recombine, but in a semiconductor like organic semiconductor, the binding energy of these is quite high. So, exciton has binding energy which is small in case of typically inorganic semiconductors, but it is large. So, basically you can say small means of the order of kT, okay, and this is much larger than kT in case of kT is about 28 milli electron volt. So, the energy is of the order of 0.2, 0.3, even larger electron volt in case of organic semiconductors. So, exciton dissociation and creation of free carriers is very important in organic semiconductors, which are polymeric semiconductors like P3HT, polyethylhexyl, thiophene, etc. However, for inorganic semiconductors like silicon or gallium arsenide, it is not a problem because the binding energy is very small. So, the moment electron hole pair is created, it is immediately separated and electron goes its way and hole goes its way, it is not a problem. Okay. So, in this process of electron hole creation, we have to follow conservation of total energy and momentum of all particles that are involved in this process. Okay. So, momentum conservation basically momentum of a photon is small p lambda, which is h divided by lambda, where h is the Planck's constant and lambda is the wavelength. And a crystal momentum, so this is for momentum of photon. Okay. Now if you look at the crystal momentum, for a crystal it is given as P small l, or lattice you can call it, small h divided by L. Small h is again Planck's constant, L is the lattice constant. So you can see here that this P lambda tends to be much smaller as compared to PL, because lambda is of the order of a micron, alright, and L is of the order of angstrom. So there is 3 to 4 orders of magnitude difference. As a result, this P lambda, so as a result, for all practical purposes, photon absorption conserves the electron. So photon absorption conserves the electron momentum. And another thing that is important is, in this case, is phonon. Phonon is related to heat, right? So photons generally have, so energy of phonon is generally very small as compared to photons. Okay. So basically photons have relatively large energy, photons have lower energy. On the other hand, photons have large momentum, photons have smaller momentum, alright. So because the momentum here, photon momentum is very small, it is relatively conserved here, but phonon momentum is large, and this is a problem in case of semiconductors which are indirect semiconductors. See what happens in direct semiconductor is, your electron makes a direct excitation from conduction to valence band. So it creates electron, creates a hole, this is direct band gap. In the indirect band gap, your Ek is at different location in the K space. So as a result, here you have change in the K, and this change in the K leads to, this is the wave vector, right. So this is basically, so conservation of this momentum causes a decrease, the issues with the change in the K value cause, this is, let us say, indirect band gap semiconductor. So not only your electrons first has to, so if when you want to excite, it is making a transition from here to here, right. So not only it has to go across the E space, it also has to traverse across the K space. So it is both K and E which play an important role in determining the absorption. As a result, what happens is that in case of indirect band gap semiconductor, the absorption is lower generally. So in case of direct band gap semiconductors, such as examples are gallium arsenide, gallium indium phosphide, even copper indium, gallium selenide, etc., and cadmium telluride. So most of these are direct band gap semiconductors. So in these cases, the alpha h nu, the absorption coefficient is given as a constant B star divided by h nu into h nu minus Eg to the power 3 by 2. This is the absorption coefficient for a direct band gap semiconductor. In case of indirect band gap semiconductor, since you have a phonon absorption as a result of change in the K, because it has to do with the lattice. K is because of lattice, and lattice has the moment you talk of lattice, you have phonon issues, lattice vibration and things like that. So basically when you are having this is basically to do with the photon absorption. So this is photon, but this is spaced is because of, and since phonon has large momentum, as a result this leads to lowering of absorption. So in case of an indirect band gap semiconductor, indirect band gap semiconductor is like silicon. Silicon is the indirect band gap semiconductor. That is the most notable example. The values are, so you can say for phonon absorption, alpha A h nu is A into h nu minus E g plus E phonon to the power square divided by e to the power E phonon by kT minus 1, whereas for phonon emission, alpha A h nu is A into h nu minus E g minus E p h square divided by 1 minus e to the power minus E photon divided by kT. This is the, so these are two expressions that we have for, so basically the absorption coefficient depends upon the density of states and the phonon availability with required momentum. So if you do not have phonons with required momentum, you will have lower absorption. So this is what the problem is in case of indirect band gap. So this leads to lowering of absorption coefficient in indirect band gap semiconductor as compared to direct band gap semiconductor, and the differences can be quite significant. Okay. So that is why for a solar cell you would like to absorb as much as possible. You would want to prefer a direct band gap semiconductor than an indirect band gap semiconductor, but there are consideration of cost and things like that. That is why we prefer silicon, because it's much cheaper as compared to other semiconductors. However, other semiconductors like gallium arsenide etc., they have much higher absorption, they absorb light much better. So every photon that shines, a lot of it is absorbed. So out of 100, let us say if you absorb 80 in a direct band gap semiconductor or 90 in a direct band gap semiconductor, in silicon you would absorb something like, I do not know, maybe about 60, 50, something like that. I mean, these are just qualitative descriptions, but the absorption coefficient is given in 10 to the power something, as we will see the values later on. There is a significant difference between the absorption coefficient values of different semiconductors. And this also causes large penetration depth in indirect band gap semiconductor as compared to direct band gap semiconductor. In direct band gap semiconductor, the penetration depth is very small because most of it absorbed in the top layers. As a result, whereas in indirect band gap semiconductor, since the absorption coefficient is lower, the radiation penetrates into higher depths because it is able to escape the top layers without getting absorbed because of poor absorption efficiency in semiconductors. So basically if you look at the absorption coefficient values as compared to wavelength in nanometer, and absorption coefficient is per centimeter inverse. So let us say these values change from 10 to the power 0 to 10 to the power, I don't know, 10 to the power 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. You got 10 to the power 2, 10 to the power 4, 10 to the power 6, and the wavelength changes from 200 to, let us say, 1400 nanometer. All right. So my silicon would be somewhere around, it will start about this value, it goes down and then it goes like this. This is for silicon. Okay. These are qualitative numbers, so but I will just tell you the whereas for something like cadmium telluride, let us use a different color. For cadmium telluride it would be like this. So, this would be for CDT. If you look at gallium arsenide would be somewhere here also. So, this would be somewhere around roughly similar gallium arsenide. Okay. So, these would be approximate changes. So, you can see that the absorption coefficient here we are talking of the range of 10 to the power 5. So, this is in the 10 to the power 5 range, this is in the range of 10 to the power 3, 10 to the power 4, 10 to the power 3. So, the huge difference in absorption coefficient, order of magnitude difference of course, and this causes silicon devices to be thicker as compared to other semiconductors. So, now having looked at these values of different, so you have now what we have different carrier transport, carrier generation or movement mechanisms. So, carrier, you can have motion, so you can have drift under the influence of electric field, you have diffusion as a result of concentration gradient, right. So, you can say if this is a semiconductor, this is what would be drift and diffusion. Okay. So, one would be J drift and you can have J diff. Signs may change depending upon things, but so these are horizontal processes in a semiconductor. So, this is X. The generation and vertical on the other hand is a vertical process on the scale of energy. If this is energy, then you have processes which are happening in this regime, which are generation slash recombination. So, you have certain number of carriers moving from here N1 and they reach here when they become N2, right, and they are affected by what is present midway in the form of what is generated, what is created, are there any traps, what is the electric field value, what is the concentration gradient and so on and so forth. So, as a result we come up with equations which we call as continuity equations. Continuity equations are because there is a change in carrier concentration with time because of recombination, because of generation, because of drift, because of diffusion, right. So, because of change in with time because of due to above factors, you have del n by del t or del p by del t affected by these things. So, we write for electrons the continuity equations as dN by dt is equal to dN by dt drift plus dN by dt diffusion plus dN by dt thermal or Rg plus dN by dt due to any other process. You can have other processes as well which can lead to carrier recombination, alright, Auger and things like that we have not taken into account, but you can have other processes. Similarly for holes, you can write dP by dt as dP by dt drift plus dP by dt diffusion plus dP by dt thermal Rg plus dP by dt other. These are called as continuity equations which express change in concentration with time, considering all the phenomena that could be present inside a semiconductor. So, for example, these equations are useful because they correlate the carrier concentration at a given point in time and at various. So, basically they correlate with position and time. So, let us say if dN by dt drift, I can write this as dN by dt diff as 1 over q del of Jn. This is for electrons, right. This is what we did earlier, right. Similarly, I can write dP by dt drift plus dP by dt diff. So, just correlating with to what we did earlier, this would be del over J P, okay. And so, we can write this dN by dt as, for example, 1 over q del of Jn plus dN by dt thermal Rg plus dN by dt other. Similarly, you can write dP by dt as 1 over q del of Jp plus dN by dP by dt thermal Rg plus dP by dt other, okay. These equations are useful because you can see now you can correlate the changes in the carrier concentration electron or hole with respect to electric field, with respect to diffusion gradient, with respect to the recombination generation. So, all the terms are inbuilt in one. So, you can have a semiconductor device in which you have only electric field, then you can ignore the other terms. If you have semiconductor device in which you have only concentration gradient, but no light shining, no recombination, etc. So, there are various conditions which can be built in a semiconductor device to solve these equations, and if possible we will take one or two of these cases in the next class, okay. So, we are finished with the sort of carrier motion in semiconductors, talking about drift, diffusion, recombination, generation, putting them together in the form of a continuity equation to look at the change of carrier concentration as a function of time and distance in a semiconductor, okay. So, this is what will form the basis for a lot of understanding, lot of things that we see in solar cells. For in solar cell, both drift, diffusion, recombination, generation, all four things are important, okay. So, hopefully this will we have not gone through all the derivations, but hopefully it will give you a qualitative understanding of these phenomena in solar cells, because we have learned the basics in these lectures, okay. So, we will stop here, we will start in the next class about something about p-n junctions, and then we will move on to solar cell characteristics.